Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you today. I'm glad you're here, and we welcome each and every one of you. Some of you are guests. You've been here before. Maybe somebody hasn't been before. We are so thrilled to have you, whoever you are, and those who worship regularly, you're not taken for granted. Certainly not. We're glad to be with everyone. We did say that I'd talk about it won't be very long after we sang that song last time on Sunday morning. And I claimed that it was wishful thinking on Tom's part as referred to the sermon. But he claimed he just obliviously forgot that that's how that would seem to me. But you know, perspective is a great part of everything. I was thinking of what is a philosophical way to say that. I decided to say that perspective casts a shadow, changing our opinion on many things, whether it might be something in the category of semantics or of time and circumstances, because our perspective may in fact be influenced by whether it's before, that is, something that we're looking forward to yet, or something that is in the past. And we look at it differently as relates to the timing that has occurred or may occur until we have the full realization. Other songs we sing are ones like "Swiftly we're turning life's precious pages." What a message there is in that. Or the one that says "further along, and we'll understand it all by and by." Perspective and time and circumstances and affect our view, whether it relates to our own existence or others. Birthdays. You know, I noted that today, I believe Lucy is 7 years old, Lucy, in the Kaljuma family. Wow. Just wow. Because such a short time ago, she just was a toddler and walking and learning to talk and those things. And I view that and I say, how could this have happened so quickly? But then I think some more, and I realize that on yesterday's date, 4:20 a.m., I greeted my only son. My son yesterday was 63 years old. I said to Betty, it is awful when your children reach retirement age and you're still working. But it's real. And then 20 years later, on April the 28th, we greeted his son. He's 42. Jed could be my grandson. He's 42, right? It's amazing. The perspective of time, because I got to tell you folks that it seems like it was a few days ago that I was awakened at 12:30 in the morning with a phone call with the news that I should drive to Tyler, Texas, for that birth 63 years ago was about to occur. Betty and I will reach 39 years of marriage at the end day of this year. Whenever we first got married, our kids started to jokingly talk to us about a 50th wedding anniversary. I said, I don't think so. I'd be 94 years old when that happens. You know what my new target is? 50th anniversary. Why not? So long ago, it looked so far away, and now I'm getting closer to it than further away from it. And it changes my perspective so very much. But life is like that with us all. Whether we are looking at, a degree plan, for instance, and when we're just starting out, we say, oh, that's going to be so long. When it's done, we tend to say it was rough and it was hard. Betty claimed after she got her ultimate degree, she claimed that PhD stands for perseverance through hardship and drudgery. I didn't argue with her, but it's an interesting perspective, causing me to realize that whenever I finished the first grade, I thought, oh boy, just 11 more. Not knowing I'd be 26 before I received a master's degree, and having no concept of what a bachelor's degree was, nor a master's, at the point I thought, oh boy, just 11 more years. The shadow of time and perspective causes it all to seem different, whether it's a project, an assignment, whether it's a pandemic that hits us like we have experienced, if it's a war, if it's a depression, if it's a backset, or if it's a sermon. People get so excited when the preacher says, I spoke with Betty about this morning. I said, I don't want to refer to Elizabeth Taylor again, because you've told me other times that I've used that illustration that the people in the crowd don't know who Elizabeth Taylor was. So she suggested I explain to you that Elizabeth Taylor, a woman who was married 7 times, is reported to have always said to every one of her husbands, I won't keep you long. And when the preacher says, I'm going to have a short sermon today, everybody smiles. But if after 30 minutes he says, and now to my first point, they become discouraged. It's perspective in relationship to the time situation. Whether it's an hour, a day, a year, a decade, a lifetime, oh, there's that other word, eternity. We have trouble, really. In retrospect, we let it get distorted and we think it wasn't long ago. Maybe it's partly in how you say it. Because, illustrating, 67 months ago, I first stood in this pulpit as your preacher. That sounds shorter to me than 5 years and 7 months sounds. Whether we use the months or the years may seem different to us, but the difference is in what has happened and what will happen. The things that we cause to be or the things that we anticipate to be. The scriptures have a great deal to say, and I wanted to cite a couple of passages this morning in beginning that I think relate to where we're going here. James chapter 4, 13 to 17 is always a very meaningful passage in terms of looking at these kinds of things. When James urges us, come now, ye that say today or tomorrow, we'll go in such a city and we'll continue there a year or a season. And we'll buy and sell and get gain. He said, when you people who are just making your plans, in fact, without consideration to time and circumstances and the intervention that God may bring in, and you're just going on glibly, planning as though you're in control and saying, we're going to stay there a year. That's what we said, wasn't it, when we came? I had told the elders that I didn't want to pull up and move out of Florence, Alabama and live this far away unless it was going to be at least a year. We agreed that it would be a minimum of a year, but a maximum of 2. Now it's 67 months. We aren't in control of everything that happens, though we may assume that we are. James said, come now, you people that just lay out your life like that without realizing that there's other things that come to bear, and the will of God is important. For what is your life, he said, it is even a vapor. It appears for a little time and then vanishes away. They say that if we want to know how very important we are in the scene of our life, that we could take a 5-gallon bucket, say one of those paint buckets from one of the big box stores, and you could fill it with water and then drop into it maybe another drop of water or a pebble or a BB or something, and then watch as the ripples go out toward the sides. And note that very soon the ripples stop and the water returns to the same stillness, and there's no evidence that you were necessarily ever there. Come now, ye that say, today or tomorrow, whereas you know not what shall be, he said, on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Like a fog in the morning that leaves no evidence at noon. What we've done is done. And he said, to him that knoweth to do good and doeth not, it is sin. He said we ought to be doing the will of God, keeping in mind, considering what is the will of the Father in our lives, not blindly laying the plans, but accepting the providence of God as it comes into our life. Another passage in 2 Peter chapter 3, beginning in verse 8, Peter said, know this first. I take it that means here's something real important. I take it that means listen up, get this. Know this first, that with the Lord, one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are as one day. You wouldn't believe how much debate there is in the world, and how many people who don't really understand Scripture who think that is a mathematical formula, and that when they read in the Bible 1,000 years, it means a day, and when they read a day, it means, no. You see, God is eternal, a word, a concept that I think we can't really ever totally grasp. God is eternal. It means he wasn't born, he wasn't invented, created. He just always was, and he is, and he always will be. He's not controlled by time. He didn't get up this morning and get tired and need to rest tonight. He doesn't buy new clothes that wear out or appliances or anything else that wears out. It is God said, I am that I am, meaning I'm always, like the Hebrew writer said of Jesus, the same yesterday, today, and forever, unchanging, consistent, eternal, and sovereign. It's hard for us to understand the difference in ourselves and God. Maybe it's hard for us to understand the likeness of God in us. But when we think about eternity, it's really hard to grasp that he's not controlled by time. And so Peter said that God is patient. He is long-suffering in his relationship with us, not willing that any should perish, not wishing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. God is allowing this time to go on, he's saying, to allow more and more people to come in. More and more people have the opportunity to be saved. And he's operating on his time, not ours. And so we might get the idea that maybe there'll never be an accounting. Maybe we'll never be called to judgment after all, but he said, but the day of the Lord will come, verse 10, as a thief in the night. When the heavens, he said, shall be destroyed, and the earth and the works therein shall be dissolved in fervent heat. He said, you can depend on God. And when the time is right, this is going to happen. Get that. It may not seem very long. This day, when you look back at it, won't seem long. The season we're in, it's being hot except for a few days this week. So hot this summer. So dry. So many calamities with fires in the forests, floods along the rivers, while other important lakes and tributaries are drying up. But we are not likely to remember this season so much for so very long. And when we look back, it'll be like, that wasn't long. It might have had its scary moments, but that wasn't long. We do that with relationships even. I've had friends, I guess the longest lasting friend I can point to with specificity is Leroy Crabtree from January of about 1951. I called him this week and we talked. It doesn't seem like but a few weeks ago that I met that young man in the 6th grade. But it's been a while, folks. Perspective. When life is over, it'll be like that. At those 50th wedding anniversaries, couples say, it just seems like yesterday. For it to seem like yesterday, they have to have forgotten a whole lot. Some of them have forgotten so much that they'll say, we never had a crossword. We never had an argument. Now, anybody that'll tell you that will lie about other things too, so don't get hung up in that. It's perspective. We need to understand that we started out together and we've come this far. When we started out together, there were a lot of other people who were with us, and they're not now. And none of us then had ever experienced a pandemic. But it doesn't seem like very long ago. We need to realize that this is a situation that's current, it's common, and it's universal. I think that people get caught up in this business of time because God's will has to be considered in everything. And it is wisest to accept it in everything because the people who, like many in this country, in our environment and in our culture, in a country that was started out based on the concept of freedom and justice for all. So many who have denied many of the bottom line concepts that brought us into existence now behave in such a way as to cause there to be just a stamp like it was on their forehead. A stamp on their forehead that reads self-destruct. Self-destruct. Not because it has to be that way, but because of the decisions they make and the direction they turn and the policies they buy into. denying Proverbs 14:34, blessed is that people whose God is the Lord. When we look back, we say it hasn't been so very long since people were honest, since people were just. Not so long since children could play in any neighborhood, walk on any path, they wouldn't be in danger. We could go to the grocery store, the post office. We could go to any public place and never fear that violent things might happen to us. It doesn't seem like very long. But to a few of our children, it has so far been always. But they've not seen anything different. In the midst of that, we tend to forget the Hebrew writer's view in chapter 9 and verse 27 that there is appointed unto men one time, one life, and then the judgment. We don't have two lives. We don't have two chances. We don't have two. This is not a rehearsal for what will be later. This is the only time that we're going to live. And I promise you, whatever your age is or mine, that when the end comes, it will not seem like it's been very long. It just will not. When the Lord calls us to our long home. Ecclesiastes 12 speaks of something different than this passing transitional period, and it calls it the long home. That's when everything and every opportunity for choices will have been ended, will have been spent, and they'll be gone. And you may be further and closer to that than you've ever really calculated. Someone did some research and calculations, and I wanted to share them with you this morning. This is one of those, if you're this age, if you take that one day, a 24-hour clock, and you look at it in terms of how far along you may be, he said if you're 15 years old today, that's over in this corner. It's 8:51 a.m. for you. If you're 25, it's 12:25. It's already past midday. If you're 20, it was 11:08. If you're 30, it's 1:25 in the afternoon. If you're 35, it's 2:59 in the afternoon. If you're 40, it's 4:16 in the afternoon. If you're 45, it's 5:33, and if you're 50, it's 6 o'clock. Some seasons of the year, it's already dark. I'm sorry, I read wrong. At 50, it's 6:50, not 6 o'clock. At 55, it's 8:07. At 60, it's 10:11. If you're 70 or older, it's approaching midnight. And at best, the day is about gone. And the here and now are really all we have. The past is gone. Tomorrow may not be ours. The wise man in Proverbs 27:1 said, boast not thyself of tomorrow, for who knows what a day may bring forth. Very early this morning, I read a note from Van Zandt County, Texas, my home county. It said, pray for people on Highway 80 near 40. There's been a tragic accident. I probably don't know who's involved in that, but somebody got up this morning early or maybe drove all night thinking, I'll fulfill my plans for tomorrow. Somebody probably won't. Romans chapter 13 reminds us that the day of our salvation is now nearer than when we first believed. And the psalmist in chapter 90 and verse 10 remind us, the days of our years shall be 70, and if by reason of strength they be 80, yet is their strength labor and sorrow. Soon we're cut off and we fly away. 2 verses later in verse 12, he said, so Lord, teach us to number our days and apply our hearts unto wisdom. This won't be very long, my friends. This life, these opportunities won't be very long. And if you have never become a child of God, if you heard sermon after sermon, some long, some short, and you've heard preachers plead for your soul, for you to obey the gospel, being baptized for the remission of sins as a penitent sinner, to allow the blood of Jesus to wash you clean, and you've always put it off and put it off. And some of you may say, well, I'm only 13 or 14 and nothing can happen. Or somebody may say 20 or 21. Somebody may say, well, I'm not even married yet, don't have my family. And some may say, well, I'm 50, but I'm healthy, and I think I'll have lots of other chances. And there are people who have drifted away from the Lord, once saved, and then diverting themselves into worldliness and forsaken the Lord. And they're not at all are they intending to die unprepared to meet God. Amos said, these things I will do unto thee. And because I will do these things, prepare to meet thy God, O Israel. And today we would urge you to prepare to meet thy God. The second sermon I ever preached in 1954. At whatever age you are, consider these odds. After 25 years of age, only one person, statistically, only one person in 10,000 turns to Jesus. After age 35, only one in 50,000. After 45, only one in 200,000. After 55, one in 300,000. After 65, one in every 1.5 million. And after 75, one in every 700 million people. This won't last long. Nearly every week, we see those odds being somehow fulfilled. This week I saw a picture of a 96-year-old who was being baptized. May remember a few years ago when Betty and I, early on a Sunday morning, went to a public facility that would allow us to use their water, baptized a woman named Reba McIntyre for the remission of sins when she was 91. It's not the one you know, but I thought it was good for my resume to say I baptized Reba McIntyre. I also baptized Billy Graham, but that was different too, just the name. And both of them very late in life. No, I must rephrase that. I didn't baptize Billy Graham. You know what? I buried him. If you've not obeyed the gospel, don't let it be true that you didn't respond to this invitation today or ever, and I or Jed or someone else had to do your funeral when you hadn't become a Christian. Don't let that happen. Don't let that happen. Or if you've been a Christian and you've drifted away, don't die separated from the Lord. Don't let that happen. This won't be long. When we sing the song of invitation, it'll be over soon too. And it could be, it might be, the last invitation song you'll hear. It won't be long. If you need to respond to the invitation of Jesus, we so pray that you'll do that right now, today, while there is time. Come while we stand and sing.